Are you currently struggling to finish your book? Well, you're not alone in that. Finishing a book for many writers can be more difficult than starting one. As someone who's written 10 novels and dozens of short stories, I've learned that the act of finishing is one of the most important lessons you can learn as a writer. However, as someone who's struggled to finish stories myself, I understand that it's not always easy. So here are 4 reasons you may not have finished your novel yet and 4 strategies to combat them. So the first reason why you might not have finished your book yet is that you're searching for perfection in an imperfect medium. So as much as we'd all like for our writing to read as perfect on the first try, writing itself is not a perfect medium. However, a lot of writers who struggle with perfectionism, me included, treat writing like it can be perfect, when in reality there's no such thing as the perfect sentence or the perfect story or the perfect scene. This is because writing is art and all art is subjective. But why do writers do this anyway? Oftentimes I've noticed that writers who try to perfect every little thing in their draft are afraid of judgment. So they may be more worried about what others think of their work versus what they think of their own work. Another reason writers might struggle with perfectionism is that they're not yet secure in their ability to edit. And that's okay. Becoming a good editor, which is intrinsically a part of being a good writer, takes a lot of time and practice. Becoming a good editor also requires that you have editable work. So if you're writing imperfectly, that's a good thing because it'll give you time and space to develop as an editor. So what's the solution? What do you do if you're stuck in a trap of perfectionism? So my tip is to acknowledge that you're unhappy with the work, then continue writing. So when I was developing as a writer, and sometimes I still do this now, I found whenever I wrote a sentence or a scene that I didn't really like, I'd become very distressed about it and immediately start revising it to calm my anxiety of, oh my God, this is so bad, people are gonna think I'm a terrible writer. The problem was I didn't give enough time for my work to breathe. Essentially, I'd begin revising immediately after I wrote a sentence, and that led to me editing very mechanical prose. I genuinely over-edited my work. So the best thing to do when you notice your perfectionism brain is pinging is to acknowledge that you're not happy with the work and then move on. By acknowledging that you're not happy with what you've just written, you've given your brain some satisfaction, but moving on means you're not caught in what is most likely a vicious and overly critical cycle. So the next reason why you might not have finished your book yet is that you're judging the project too generally. Have you ever used the phrase, "my book is bad"? Because I have. Sometimes when I'm unhappy with a scene or a chapter, I'll make a grand generalization about the entire project. But why do writers do this? Oftentimes writers use grand statements like this as hyperbole. Really, they're just trying to express their frustration with their project. But sometimes when I'm particularly unhappy with a project, I can find myself believing this. My book really must be bad. Another reason why writers might make grand generalizations like this is because books are long and therefore take quite some time to write. Oftentimes books take at least a couple of months to draft. This means that writers can lose perspective on small details of their book and only remember large events and opinions. That might include moments where they're unhappy with the work. So instead of looking back on your book and thinking, oh, I really liked this line here, or I really liked this half scene here, all you're thinking is, I hated this entire chapter. And because I hate the entire chapter, my book must be bad. So what's the solution? What do you do if you genuinely begin believing that your manuscript is bad? So my solution is to treat each section as its own unit. So if you write with chapters, then look at the chapters on a smaller scale. That could mean breaking it down by beat or by scene. When you break down a large project into smaller pieces, you might be able to better see that each unit has its own issues that need to be fixed. You therefore break down the process from my entire book is bad to this one paragraph or this one sentence or this one scene needs more work. So the third reason why you might not have finished your book yet is that you're taking too long to draft. And hear me out on this one. This is not meant as any shade to those of us who have other responsibilities that take up a lot of our time, or for those of us who draft slowly. I've been both of these people. I'm a full-time student, which means I'm not really drafting much during 8 months of the year. However, and this is a big however, I've noticed that something happens as someone who used to be able to draft books in 3 to 6 months versus me now, where it takes me 1 to 2 years to finish a manuscript, and that's at a really good pace. I'm currently nearly at 2.5 years with one of my manuscripts. While sometimes I need to take my time on a project and writing fast does not equate to skill, oftentimes the reason why I'm writing slow is not because I want to, but because other responsibilities get in the way or I'm caught up in perfectionism. I'm not saying that's the case for everybody, but for those of you who resonate with this tip is for you. The biggest problem I find happens when I take too long to write a book. is that I notice that over time, my interests change. Because they change so much over time, by the time I get to work on the project again, I need to drastically change it in order for it to fit my current needs. This can lead me to restarting or re-editing a project over and over and over again without actually finishing it. So why do some writers do this? Why do some writers take so long to write their books? As noted, I'm a busy person, and I'm sure many of you watching this are busy. The majority of people who watch my channel are 18 to 24, which means we most likely are in school or have jobs. I started writing when I was 12, and I'm not the same 7th or 8th grader who could pump out 100,000 word manuscripts in 3 or 4 months. I just have way too many responsibilities for that. I don't have enough time in a day to write 4,000 words a day like I used to. Another reason why some writers might take a while to finish their manuscript is because they may have an issue with perfectionism. Perhaps they feel like they need to polish every single moment in the book before they can call it done. This is not targeted at people who enjoy doing that, just as a disclaimer. So what's the solution? What do I do if I take too long to draft a book? So my tip is to create strong habits to achieve your goals for a project. This does not mean finish your book in 2 months. Just put your mind to it and write it really quickly. If you have responsibilities, it's likely that you're probably not going to have very much time to do that, even if you can work around your schedule. However, as silly as it sounds, to draft a book quicker, you do have to write it faster and more often. But for busy people, this is oftentimes not an easy task. This is why I recommend realistic planning. I'm a full-time student, like I said, so I know I'm not going to be drafting basically from September to April. So therefore, I prioritize May to August as drafting months. I also try to ease the pressure off of myself when I am in school because it's just not realistic for me to do so much at once. That also makes me more excited and more energized to actually get to writing when I do have the time. While I'm not drafting, and drafting for me takes up the most time, I still try to engage with my project. And I can do that by either rereading it ever so often, so I'm kind of refreshing my mind on what it's about and where the characters are at, or I work on a reverse outline because I'm a pantser. If you're an outliner, you could work on your outline. And sometimes I even take notes. I just try to stay engaged with the project. If you can find 5 minutes a day to engage with the project, I find helps in not disconnecting me for so long on the draft. If you can even draft for 10 to 15 minutes a day, that's a win. Progress is progress. 1 sentence a day is a goal. I've done that before and I found it was really doable when I was in school. I find that if I leave a project to sit for too long without looking at it, that I lose my intention for it. So you could even take some time to write out intentionality statements. What are you trying to do with the project? What are you hoping the project will turn into? Because I'm setting a realistic goal, I know that sometimes my manuscript does sit untouched for weeks or months at a time. So that's why I like to plan ahead for when that inevitably occurs. So the final reason why you might not have finished your book yet is that you're writing what you think you should write and not what you want to write. At some point in a writer's career, it's happened to me, you'll find yourself drafting a project that you think you'll enjoy. Perhaps a certain genre is trending, or perhaps someone complimented you on something, so now you feel like you should just write that. Perhaps you've been told that your project just isn't marketable, so you completely readjust it. Or perhaps you're focused on perfecting your story's logic rather than actually completing it. I definitely have that issue. So why? Why do writers do this? Why do writers write what they think they should write and not what they genuinely want to write? It's very natural to tailor your story to what you think the market will want, especially in the age of writing advice where everybody's talking about trends and what's in and what's not. It's even more understandable to do this since there's such an emphasis online on publishing your work. Even though I write lots of work for myself, a majority of the work is just personal work, I find myself deciding what I'll write or tailoring a character based off of what I think other people will want from it or what I think a market that I'm not even publishing the book into will want. Oftentimes, these decisions go against my gut instinct and inevitably they cause a larger issue somewhere down the road. Sometimes I even end up in a rut that takes me a really long time to get out of. So what's the solution? Well, my suggestion here is to follow and foster your gut instinct. If I ever feel like I've gone wrong somewhere in a project, it's likely because I made a decision for the book that was based off of external factors. For example, maybe I decided something because I thought it made the most sense, or I made a decision because I thought an audience might like it. While these are important elements to consider in revisions, your job when drafting is to finish the book. Third-party party worries like, is my logic tight enough? Or is this character arc complete? May only stop you from completing the draft. Learning to follow your gut instinct may help you craft stories you're excited about. A writer's initial reaction to their work is often the most important reaction. When logic or overthinking comes in, we can often have a tendency to overlook or forget the initial spark that made us excited to write the book in the first place. This is why I recommend grabbing your gut reaction and never letting go. Follow it. And if you're feeling a certain way about an idea, chances are that readers will feel that way too. Work that comes from passion and from heart shows. All right, so those are 4 reasons why you may not have finished your book yet. I wanted to make this video because I've been struggling to finish one of my books. In fact, I recently posted a vlog working on the ending, but as somebody who's finished books in the past, especially books that were really difficult, I've been thinking on what I found helpful and also what I've been struggling with in the last couple of weeks. And that's why this topic is really important to me, because it's not just something that I'm talking about, it's something that I'm currently experiencing. And I hope that these tips help you. Researching and prepping for this video, just being able to acknowledge the issues that I was having have also helped me feel more confident that I can get to the ending. I'm almost there, and if you're almost there too, we can do it together. Let me know what you're working on in the comments. Have you ever struggled with an ending before? Let's have a discussion in the comments, but for now, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.